Hi, my name is Emiliano Caballero, and today I'm here to show you how to mix vocals using reverb and delay with stock plugins in Pro Tools. The track I'm using, it's a track of my own project, Selmar, called Into You, that I wrote with my friend Jermaine Fleur. In this video, I want to show you how I used basically the stock plugins in Pro Tools for reverb and delay to create ambience, to create stereo separation, delays, and just kind of an ambience where the vocals live in. Let's just listen the vocal just without a reverb or delay.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you. But no matter what I do, no, you make me feel like a fool. I'm powerless when I'm with you. What you done to me to mess up my mind? And don't you dare give me those eyes.
We printed like distortion and EQ and compression in the lead vocal verse and chorus track. So that way we are kind of like more free to experiment with ambience, delays, reverbs, and so on. I use 3 different auxiliaries in Pro Tools that you can name as you wish. In this case, I named them first one, slap LV, like a slapback delay, kind of, the old Elvis Presley kind of vibe. Second auxiliary track, it's what I use a plate, okay? Has a very specific sound, plate reverbs. Mostly they are very well known, like the EMT 140 to be used in brass, vocal sounds, strings, things like this, This third aux I'm using, I call it stereo delay LV. Why am I using stereo delay? Basically to make the track like wider, bigger, mostly in the choruses. It can enhance and make your tracks sound bigger, especially your lead vocals when they are in mono. If you start putting different delay times and different equalization in the left and right, you create kind of a nice stereo with an ambience. I'm going to play you just the dry vocal so you have a reference.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
The vocals sound dry plus the slap back delay.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
If you cannot hear it well enough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the volume or the level of the return track. So I'm going to exaggerate the sound for you.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
As you can tell, they have this like old school vibe to it, kind of like what I was saying, like the classics 50s, 60s recordings of Motown, Elvis Presley, like kind of like rockabilly, Chuck Berry kind of vibe, which the inspiration for this was some like 70s, 60s old school rock, which if there is a sound that defines that type of music is a slapback delay on the vocal. First, we have an EQ7 plugin. I want to, let's say, make the vocal sound going into that delay or that effect chain a more lo-fi quality. When I mean lo-fi, is back in like 50s or 60s, either recording in like, direct to disc recordings, like the earlier reel-to-reel tape recorders. The frequency spectrum or definition was not as we have it today, which we can record really high frequencies and really low frequencies. It was kind of mostly mid-range with a bit of highs and a bit of lows. That's kind of the sound of this era, okay? We can replicate that very easily by just cutting the highs and the lows. We are using, in this case, a high-pass filter, as you can see, with a Q of 12 dB per octave. We're cutting our frequencies below 158. Again, these numbers are relative. It's mostly just out of listening to it and getting a vibe. There is not really a textbook for these frequencies. It's what it sounds good for that vocal and that effect. So don't get caught up too much in the numbers. Just like listen to it and go with your feeling and your gut instinct. And for your low pass filter, we have the same thing: Q of 12 dB per octave. You can read about basically Qs and like the phase shift that happens when you go like over like 6 dB per octave, which is like 12, 18, and so on. It definitely has a sound, but again, in this case, I just prefer like this setting. I would recommend you to experiment with different Q settings because it's a sometimes like a setting or parameter that gets forgotten, and it has a lot of power to always play with Q and frequency, because sometimes you want like a softer Q and like a lower basically a frequency cut point, or maybe you want a tighter one and you just raise the frequency. It all depends of the sound, okay, that you are looking for. The key that I want to share with this is experimentation and deciding on what you're listening to. I will not really look at it, just be reckless. What it feels good is good. So in this case, we have this low and high pass filter. As well, we have just a bit of the boxiness, low mid section, just cutting off a bit of this, just to make the vocal return for the delay a bit of a clearer sound. Well, let's put the slap back send as a pre, so we just hear the return of this EQ.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Off.
But no matter what I do, no, you make me feel like a fool. I'm powerless when I'm with you.
There is changing the quality of the vocal. Like it's more lo-fi, it's not as high definition, but actually that's what I'm looking for. To create a texture that is different in the return tracks, in the delays and reverbs than in the original sound, to make it more different, to make a shadow and like underneath the main lead vocal. I want to kind of create like a shadow behind it so it's has depth to it. Next step in the chain, I use mod delay. This is a very interesting delay chain that I really like. And there's a simple setting that I enjoy. It's just a mono delay, as you can tell. In the left and the right has the same delay times. Normally, I like to use 125 milliseconds for it. There is not really like science behind this. It's just what I feel that I like most of the time. It's a very simple setup. So just 125 milliseconds, 100% wet because it's a return track. Again, this low pass filter, I'm cutting a lot of the high end of the feedback loop of the delay track or delay plugin in this case. Why? Because I want the delay to have a lo-fi sound, to have a tape quality to it, and tape degrades over time. And one of the main things that happen is that high frequency loss is noticeable. Something that happens in the feedback circuit of this plugin is very interesting. There is, as you can see, I'm gonna put this at 0 so there is no repetition. There is actually a positive and a negative feedback cycle. What this is you are actually changing the polarity of the feedback loop of the plugin when you go to a negative feedback. That helps sometimes to have a different texture in the feedback in the repetitions of the vocal. Again, the key here is experimentation. Always try doing negative or positive. You will always be surprised, but the results. In this case, I really liked how the negative feedback sounded, and that's how I left. Let's listen to the lead vocal sound with this delay.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Let's send more.
But no matter what I do, no, you make me feel like a fool. I'm powerless when I'm with you.
Again, I would recommend you to do the mixing of the levels in context. I'm just doing the vocal in solo for you to really hear the effect. Here's the last thing I will do to this vocal chain. I want to make the slapback a bit more diffuse. I don't want to have so much clarity or definition to it. The best way that I find in this case to do it is just a reverb. I really like spring reverb sometimes in vocals, and in this case, I use in the Air plugin version of it. Like again, just a bit of pre-delay, real time around below 4 seconds, and just mix that in around 10%. Let's listen to it.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
This is with the reverb off.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
This is with the reverb on.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
The definition of the delay slapback, it just gets, let's say, less defined, more diffuse, and that's something I like to do. You can play with this mix knob as, for example, let's just do it.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Let's put it back to where it was in terms of level, so we blend that in.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
We already have some shadow, or like kind of a depth underneath our lead vocal, and that's first step. Again, what we are doing here, it's to combine different effects to create like the full sound or the final sound of our vocal sound. Let's mute the slapback for now. In this other case, we have a plate. There is a bit of processing in this track, and I'll show you what we have done. First off, we have a plugin, this kind of a LA2A emulation. The reason I'm using this plugin is because very simple, just one knob, gain, peak reduction, that was it. And what I want to achieve with this is to not make the vocal reverb jump out in and out in level. I want to have like a very solid block of vocal underneath my main lead vocal, and not having a jumpy vocal level for different vowels or different consonants, you name it. In this case, I'm using this plugin. I'll activate this. As you can see, I'm blending this in this way. Let's put this back in and see how much of this signal is being compressed.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
As you can tell, there's compression going on. Next step in this chain is EQ. Kind of a similar EQ that we did before. I think I just copied this EQ for the same concept, just making a more lo-fi vocal sound to differentiate my lead vocal to the effects. Just kind of like making a more decorrelated sound. Let's do the same thing as before. Let's just listen to this chain just by itself.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
What you are listening is just this played return. You are not listening to the original sound. It's a pre-send fader from the track to the effect. Let's put this back in, and you will hear the original sound with the compressed and EQ version.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Okay, now we go to the interesting bit, which is D-Verb. In this case, we're using a plate setting, the large algorithmic, but I put 1.6 seconds, which is pretty short. I like to experiment with these times, like just checking around. There is no right and wrong in here. It's whatever feels good. But again, I'm always paying attention to the high frequency element of it. High frequency in reverbs and delays, I think they date the recording. Like if you listen to a lot of the 80s music, there's a lot of S's, there's a lot of high frequency in the reverb tracks. And that's kind of the sound of that era. I think now we live in a more dark reverb era for certain things, especially not in the delay throws and things like this, but more in the return tracks. More and more, I feel in pop music, we get very dry vocals, which I really love in this case. So I think we're trying to get away with murder here, meaning, yeah, we want to use some reverb and delay, but we don't want to hear it more. We just want to feel it, if that makes sense. And one great tool to do it is just using like high frequency cut and getting rid of high frequencies in effects. In this case, I'm cutting about 7K. I'll play you the reverb without this high frequency cut, and then with. Bear in mind that I'm already cutting high frequencies here, okay? I'm gonna exaggerate the level so you hear it.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Let's play back again.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
All right. Let's now put the high frequency cut on what, 6K, something like that. Again, these two parameters are a bit different. I cannot recall from the top of my head, but one of them affects basically the overall output of the reverb, and the other one affects the early reflections EQ of the reverb, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I will recommend you to read the manual of this if you want to really like understand this. I mostly, in this case, I'm just go with feeling. I think that's what something I did before. And let's listen to the result of this high frequency cut.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
As you can tell, there's less high frequency in this case. In order to like take this a notch further, we actually EQ the output of this reverb as well to make it even more dark. Let's listen to it.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Let's listen to just reverb only.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
As you can tell, it's a short reverb. It's a very dark space, but it starts to like to work in that ambience, in that space we put our vocals in. Let's take this out of pre-fader. Let's listen to the slap lead vocal and the plate all together now.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Again.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
As you can see, or you can actually hear, there is already starts to create an ambience around the vocal, kind of wrapping it up. The last trick in this case, I'm gonna mute what we have for so far, is creating a stereo delay. Again, we make stereo to give a sense of depth and width in this case. We are using, again, mod delay, but check this out. First, we want to have different delay times for left and right, and that's basically to make our ear focus on different timings. Due to like psychoacoustics in your hearing system, you will hear like earlier, or your hearing is gonna latch first on the delay that has the shortest delay time. In this case, in the left side. So it can happen that your delay sounds left heavy, but there are ways to compensate for it and kind of like balance this out. One of the ways is to play with how much high frequency that left channel or that shorter delay time it's getting. Check this out, how in the left channel, where has a shorter delay time, there's less high frequency, so we cut more of the high frequency than in the right channel. Let's listen to it and then you will understand. I'll exaggerate it for you.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Which actually now you even have more of like a presence in the right side, which makes sense because it has more high end. But let's put this the same and see how it feels.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
You see now the delay starts to lean a bit to the right. Basically, it works in that way that it's gonna pay attention more to like the shorter delay time. Let's put this back as we had it, and we start compensating for it. You can always play with this and try to like compensate real time. Let's do it.
Can't get enough of you now. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
That's a place that I'm happy with. I've mentioned this before, where the feedback can be positive or negative, depends of the polarity of the feedback circuit of the delay. Let's try now to just make feedback in the left channel, positive feedback.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Again, it's getting a bit left heavy. Now let's put some more feedback in the right channel.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
It starts to get more balanced, but something I like to take this a notch up is just to make this negative feedback. So change the polarity of the return so it starts to get more separation. Let's listen to it.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
It is a subtle move, but I think it does help very much so. The last part or the last trick I want to introduce in this left-right delay is this modulation section. I just have like a bit of different settings to make it even more different, more decorrelated, more stereo, more different between left and right and the main lead. So we have more of a stereo feel to it. You can play with this. I'll exaggerate it for you, but it's definitely something you have to feel out.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
So you could tell that I kind of exaggerate the sound, but there's a bit of modulation always helps. So I definitely will recommend you to like play with these parameters until it feels good to you. The last part on this vocal track is just an EQ. Same thing is I think it's the same EQ I copied from the tracks before, which is like making it more lo-fi. Let's listen to it.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Without?
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
With again.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
Let's listen to all the effects at once.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you.
And now in context of the song.
Can't get enough of you, no. You turn up the heat some more. Can't help myself when I'm with you. But no matter what I do, no, you make me feel like a fool. I'm powerless when I'm with you.
I hope this information has been useful for you. Again, if you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments. And I hope to see you again very soon.